Nina sat quietly in the spacious house she and her husband Harvey had built together. He was away on a business trip, leaving her alone for the week. Though she loved him deeply, the silence of their home felt overwhelming. The routine of daily life without his laughter and presence had started to feel stifling. Nina couldn't shake the growing feeling of loneliness, coupled with an undercurrent of boredom. As she gazed out the window, she began to consider breaking from her monotonous schedule, something that could perhaps reignite a spark in her life. Nina thought back to the years she and Harvey had spent together, the routine of work, meals, and quiet nights at home. She loved her husband, but his absence stirred something inside her. The stillness seemed endless, and Nina couldn't ignore the restlessness growing within. She longed for a sense of excitement, a break from the mundane. Her best friend, Emily, noticed Nina's mood and suggested they go out for a night to unwind. The offer was tempting, a chance to escape the quiet, and Nina, though hesitant, considered it as an option to shake off her boredom. Reluctantly, Nina agreed to go out with Emily. It was a local bar, nothing fancy, just a simple spot for drinks and conversation. When they arrived, Nina felt a rush of unease. The music was loud, the crowd boisterous, and the flashing lights made her feel out of place. But as the night wore on, Nina began to loosen up, swept away by the lively atmosphere. Her usual self-consciousness faded, replaced by a sense of freedom. That's when she met him. A man at the bar caught her attention, and they started talking. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and they shared several laughs. There was an undeniable chemistry between them that Nina hadn't felt in a long time. As the night progressed, Nina and the man shared a few drinks. The alcohol relaxed her, and she felt more daring, more alive. The man, charming and attentive, showered her with compliments, and she found herself drawn to him. The playful banter escalated into flirtation, and Nina, despite the nagging voice in her head, found herself captivated. She'd never imagined herself in a situation like this, but there was a thrilling sense of feeling wanted again. The man's gaze was intense, and Nina couldn't help but feel a growing attraction. The mix of excitement and guilt was electric, and the tension between them was undeniable. She was torn between wanting to stay in this moment of exhilaration and the faint discomfort of knowing it was wrong. The evening reached a point where Nina, despite all her internal warnings, decided to continue her night with the man. She convinced herself it was a one-time thing, something to break the monotony, something harmless. The more she tried to rationalize it, the more enticing the idea became. The man's presence was magnetic, and before long, they were leaving the bar together. As they walked through the city streets, Nina's pulse raced. There was excitement, but also a weight of guilt she couldn't shake. The night felt like a blur of fleeting moments, and as they reached the hotel, Nina knew she had crossed a line. But in that moment, the thrill overshadowed everything else, and she followed him inside, unsure of what the consequences would be. Nina woke up in a hotel room with a throbbing headache, her body aching. The fog of the previous night still clung to her, but slowly, reality began to seep in. She had done something she never thought she would, and the regret hit her like a cold wave. She glanced around the room, trying to piece together what had happened, but the details were hazy. As her mind cleared, she reached for her phone and saw a call from Harvey, his name flashing on the screen. She hesitated before answering, forcing a smile into her voice. She couldn't tell him the truth, not yet. She had no idea how to explain it, and the guilt weighed heavily on her. As the day wore on, Nina's body began to protest. A sharp, persistent pain began in her abdomen, and at first, she dismissed it as the after-effects of too much drinking. But the pain only grew worse, radiating through her stomach in waves. By the time she realized something was seriously wrong, it was unbearable. She found herself at the hospital trembling with worry. The doctors ran tests, and Nina sat nervously, trying to block out the guilt gnawing at her. The diagnosis was not what she expected. Her reckless actions had put a strain on her body. The doctor's words echoed in her mind as she tried to comprehend what had just happened, realizing how badly she had jeopardized her health. The doctor's tone was somber as he explained the severity of the situation. Nina's reckless choices, the stress she'd put on her body, had led to this moment. She felt a wave of dread wash over her. Was this the price she had to pay for her brief escape from routine? Her body, now betraying her, left her with a harsh reminder of the consequences. Her thoughts turned to Harvey, and she feared how he would react when he found out. The secrecy of the night, the betrayal, now seemed like an insurmountable weight. As the doctor finished explaining, Nina's mind raced. Would she be able to hide the truth much longer? Harvey finally returned home after a long business trip. He immediately reached out to Nina, worried when he couldn't get in touch. He soon learned she had been in the hospital. His concern deepened when he arrived to find her lying in a hospital bed, pale and distant. Nina tried to shield him from the full extent of what had happened, but her silence only fueled his suspicions. He noticed the unease in her eyes, the way she avoided his questions. Something wasn't right. The tension grew, and Harvey could feel the truth pulling at the edges of their conversation. He was worried, but more than that, he could sense that Nina was hiding something and the pieces didn't fit together. Unable to hold it in any longer, Harvey confronted Nina. His voice was tight with emotion as he asked her directly what had happened. Nina felt the weight of the moment, the pressure building in her chest. She admitted to what had happened, to the man at the bar and the choices she had made. Her voice shook as she explained how she had been craving excitement, how she had felt detached from herself. Harvey listened, his face a mixture of anger, confusion, and hurt. The silence between them was thick with unspoken questions, and the pain in Harvey's eyes cut through Nina. The betrayal was undeniable, and Nina knew she had to face the consequences of her actions. The days that followed were filled with tension. Harvey and Nina barely spoke, the silence between them heavy and suffocating. He struggled to process what had happened, to understand why she had done it. Nina, on the other hand, was consumed with regret and self-doubt. She kept replaying the night in her mind, wondering how it all had gone so wrong. The distance between them grew, and Nina found herself questioning if their relationship could ever recover. She didn't know how to fix what she had broken, and Harvey seemed to retreat into himself, uncertain about what to do next. Nina spent hours alone, thinking about everything that had led her to this point. She realized that her loneliness and desire for something more had pushed her to make a reckless decision. She had lost sight of what truly mattered in her life, and now she was paying the price. The guilt consumed her as she wondered if there was any hope for her relationship with Harvey. Could she ever regain his trust? Could they rebuild what had been shattered? The questions haunted her, and she wasn't sure she had the answers. All she knew was that her life had irrevocably changed. Harvey wrestled with his emotions. The betrayal cut deep, but the love he had for Nina still lingered. He realized that their relationship might never be the same again. He needed time to process everything, whether he could forgive her, whether he could ever trust her again. The weight of the decision was heavy, and he wasn't sure what the future held. Would he choose to move forward with Nina, trying to rebuild what they once had, or would he decide it was too much to bear? The suspense loomed over them both as they faced an uncertain future, unsure of where their relationship would go from here. Nina and Harvey stood at the crossroads of their relationship. The damage had been done, and the road ahead was uncertain. Nina vowed to make changes in her life, to reflect on her mistakes and learn from them. But deep down, both of them knew that their relationship had been irrevocably altered. They had crossed a line, and the emotional scars would not easily fade. As they faced the future, Nina and Harvey knew that the healing process would be long and difficult. The question remained, could they ever fully heal from the betrayal, or would it define the rest of their lives together?